I want to bring in MS Now's Alex Cabot, who's been talking to drivers in Montgomery, Alabama. Peter Baker is chief White House correspondent for the New York Times and an MS Now contributor. Ron Insana is a veteran financial journalist, MS Now business analyst, and publisher of The Message of the Market on Substack. Peter, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was on Fox a little bit earlier, and he was asked about the economic pressure Americans are feeling. Take a listen to what he said.
We are cognizant that this short-term blip up in prices is affecting the American people, but I am also confident on the other side of this, prices are going to come down very quickly. You know, the conflict will end. This gasoline, this temporary aberration will be over in a matter of weeks or a month.
I wonder what you're hearing inside the White House. Are they stuck on this idea that 9 weeks in, the message is still, don't worry, things will get better soon?
Yeah, it's a message that didn't work for the last president either, by the way. I remember President Biden kept telling people, don't worry, inflation will get better. It actually did, but it didn't matter politically because people were so upset about it when it was still high, they didn't give him credit when it came back down to a more normal level. And so the problem for the president here politically is that this starts to get baked in, right? This starts to become part of the overall political consciousness. A lot of political professionals will tell you that in an election year, where the economy stands in June is usually pretty formative in terms of voter attitudes in the fall. That's, you know, by that point, it's hard to turn around their attitudes, even with things getting better. We've seen time and time again presidents suffering at the polls, even though the economy had started coming back in the fall because it was just too late for changing voter perspectives. So he's only got a few weeks left to change these viewpoints. It doesn't seem that he has the ability to do that, even if Treasury Secretary Bessent is right and this ends soon. I'm not sure. The economist, Ron, will tell us better, I guess. I'm not sure that the prices immediately come down as fast as they hope it would. And I don't think the effects, the knock-on effects elsewhere on things like fertilizer, food, all the other things that have been taking a hit suddenly turn around in just a few weeks either.
Yeah, and Ron, let's stick with gas prices for just a minute. We should remind people that a record high for a gallon of regular is $5.02. That's according to AAA. It's just shy of $4.46 now. Is that what Americans should be bracing for?
I would think so. I mean, you know, just today, in fact, oil spiked to $105 a barrel as a result of what appears now to be some military action between Iran and the United Arab Emirates. Iran fired missiles and drones into the UAE, into some production facilities. So that's pushing oil back up to $105. That's got the stock market down. And no doubt, as long as this continues, as long as oil is not coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, then gas prices are more likely to go up than down. And even if this whole thing were to end tomorrow, it's still weeks to months before the situation can be normalized. And in some instances where there's been damage to oil infrastructure, it may take years to get back to where we were before the war. So this has a relatively long tail to it. Gasoline prices may come down if everything ended tomorrow. From what it looks like right now, that certainly is not in the cards.
Well, Alex, the average gallon of regular where you are is just a hair under $4. So better than the national average, but Alabama is a state that's among the poorest in the country. So what are they telling you there? How are folks dealing with this?
Well, Chris, people have described the economic conditions right now as suffocating. I've spent an ungodly amount of time at gas stations in the last couple of months. I've heard stories of people choosing between driving or eating. I've heard people tell me that they haven't been able to buy their medications because they need to fill up the tank so they can go to work. I've heard people tell me that they're walking for miles and miles and miles because in these economic conditions, every drop of gas counts because every penny counts. And here in Alabama, that's no different, especially given what you just noted. About 15% of the state lives in poverty. It's one of the poorest states in the country. I've been talking to people all day about the changes that they've been making in their budgets and their day-to-day life. I want you to hear what they had to say.
You cut a lot of things. You cut out a lot of things that you do it, come out with different ways of doing things.
I'm budgeting different from what I used to. It costs a lot to keep this car full, but I'm trying to do what I can.
Well, I'm willing to take the slight hike in prices right now. I believe that we're doing the right thing.
You just have to adjust.
But you got to think about why everything is ridiculous like it is.
It's been causing a problem with everybody, like financially wise, because like now you have to pay more, and now you have to worry about how far you're going, stuff like that.
And Chris, here in Alabama, of course, there are many diehard Trump supporters, people who have been telling us that they still believe that this war is in the best interest of the country, that it's in the best interest of America's national security, and they're willing to trust the process. They're willing to be patient with the president. But the question is, how much longer can this continue? How much longer can these prices continue before that patience starts wearing thin amongst the MAGA base? Chris?
Yeah, thank you for continuing to go to gas stations all across America for us. Peter, I also noted that more than a third of Americans are now giving up on their vacations or changing plans. That's a huge number at a time, especially when arguably, I think polls even show this, Americans were already reporting high levels of stress. And you got to wonder, because I was thinking about what you said about June kind of being a cutoff. Is there a whole other level of frustration and anger if you were telling your kids, hey, kids, we're going here, on your summer break, and now you have to tell them, no, we can't do it, we can't afford it. It just feels like a domino effect.
Yeah, look, it's one thing when people watch events overseas and maybe they approve of them, maybe they don't, maybe they think the war is a good idea or a bad idea. But when it comes home to their own families, when it comes home to their own lives, that's a different thing politically, right? It's not abstract at that point. It's very real. And as we just heard, for a lot of people, the price of gas changes their outlook. It changes their family budget on a day in, day out basis. It's not an esoteric factor. So, yeah, I think that has an effect. It was already a tough year for the incumbent party. They were already looking at some losses in the midterm. But Republicans right now, when you talk to them, they're feeling pretty upset about how this is making things worse. And they're looking for an out. They're looking for a way to see if this war can be wrapped up in a short term on some favorable basis. They don't want to simply, walk away from it, because it is important to them that Iran not have a nuclear weapon, that Iran not be a threat in the region. But, there's a mild level of panic right now among a lot of Republican office holders who are looking at a pretty tough year.
Yeah. Well, Ron, I mentioned that 76% of people disapprove of the president's handling of the cost of living, and yet there are concerns that things could get worse. Is Senator Blumenthal right about these specific ripple effects that we're starting to see and will continue to broaden if this war isn't over soon?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's just not a political agreement I'm making, but when you look across the spectrum of products that are affected by what travels through the Strait of Hormuz, it's not just oil and natural gas. It's things like fertilizer, and farmers around the world are having a difficult time, obviously, planting here in the spring season, because they're either paying up exorbitantly for fertilizer, or they're not able to get it. The cost of diesel, which affects shipping costs for all manner of goods that get delivered to your stores, those costs are going up. That's pushing up the price of consumer goods as well. Helium, which is not getting out of the strait, that's used in computer chip production. So all of these different elements that usually come through the strait, and which now have been, effectively blockaded for quite a number of weeks, and are not likely to come out anytime soon. And even if they do, it takes weeks to months to get to their destination. Those prices will remain elevated for some period of time. And that, again, will sour consumer moods and probably not help the president with his poll numbers, even from where they are at these low levels.